Hi, friends. Welcome to our Divrei Torah. We're on Parashat Shemot. We begin a new book today. If some of you have just joined us with the beginning of this new book, I especially welcome you. It's a new book, but it continues the old one because it begins Ve'ele Shemot Bnei Yisrael. Ve'ele, the Vav of Ve'ele, and these are, the rabbis tell us, is a continuation. Musif al Rishonim. This is a continuation of what happened in Genesis. Please remember the teaching of my revered teacher, Dr. Abraham Joshua Heschel, who said, the motif of Sefer Breshit, of the book of Genesis, is all, how do I live with my brother? Excuse me, and the meaning of the following four Chumashim, the rest of the Torah, is a response to that. How do I build a society where my brother and I can live together? How do I create a teaching that will allow me to love my brother? Ve'ele Shmot Bnei Yisrael Haba'im Mitzrayim. These are the names of the children of Israel coming into Egypt. Haba'im, as though they're still coming. We are always coming into Egypt. We, the children of Israel, always coming into that narrow place, Mitzrayim, the straits. Remember, Egypt was called Mitzrayim because of the delta. It's two straits coming down, and the delta is built in between them. So we are always coming into the Meitzar, into the narrow place, the place of narrow-mindedness, the place of too much judgment. And the answer is, go back to the wide open spaces. Mina Meitzar Karatia Anani V'Merchavia. The answer is expansion. The answer is expanding the mind, expanding consciousness, thinking more freely. Eile Shmot Bnei Yisrael Haba'im Mitzrayma. Yaakov Ishuveto Ba'u. Notice both names come. He's become Yisrael. He's been transformed. He had that wrestling match with the angel. He's been the pious elder now, blessing his children, Yisrael. But when you go into Egypt, Yaakov comes with you. You never leave it behind. Ishuveto, the whole kit and caboodle comes. The whole pekel you take with you into Egypt when you go into Egypt. But something tremendous happens to us there. A few verses later, Pharaoh says to his people, Hine am b'nei Yisrael rav v'atzum mimenu. Am, they're a people. We were never a people in Genesis. We were just a family, just tribes. And maybe the book of Genesis was written about tribes who were defining themselves as part of one people. But the word people never occurs about Israel in Genesis. All of a sudden, you open the book of Shemot, Pharaoh sees Bnei Israel are too many for us, too many and too powerful. Rav v'atzum. Could it be that there are more slaves than there were Egyptians? There were places in the American South like that, you may recall, where people were afraid. People were afraid of something like the rebellion in Haiti. There was just a small group of overlords, and the slaves got up and slaughtered them. But it's hard to believe there were so many Israelites already. Therefore, I want to interpret Rav ve'atzum in a different way. Atzum, first of all, they became more themselves. They became more atzmam. The selfhood of Israelite peoplehood begins in Egypt. Our peoplehood was created in the diaspora, not in Eretz Yisrael. It was the suffering of Galut that defined our people then and now. And we bear it with us all the time, even in the land of Israel. And that's part of what the land of Israel suffers from. Too much of Galut brought along. Too many memories. Too many fixed attitudes that we can't change, that come from that bad experience of having been formed inside the slavery of Egypt. But am rav ve'atzum mimenu. Not only are they very much themselves, I want to interpret it here the way I interpret it in the Parsha of Balak, where it says, Vayagor Balak mipnei ha'am ki ravhu. Balak was afraid of the people because it was rav, because it was so big, so many. I want to say, no, it's not that there were so many Jews, is that they quarreled. Rav, milshon riv. Rav can also mean to quarrel. He looked at these Jews and said, oh my God, there are people who quarrel with each other. They raise their children to think independently, and therefore they become independent thinkers. They all have opinions. What will happen if my people encounter them? My people will turn into them, and then my absolute monarchy is kaput. Pharaoh says the same thing. They're dangerous people to have because they think too freely. That's the way Jews are. We have a culture of controversy. All those generations of studying Talmud have meant shaklevataria, give and take in arguments. You're right, you're right, you're right too. All the opinions are preserved. Even though the law may be decided, the minority opinions are kept because we might need them in another generation. Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chayim. They're all the words of the living God. So let's preserve that opinion too. This is a dangerous kind of people to expose your subjects to. If you want to run an absolute monarchy or a fascist government or a former democracy that you're trying to turn into a kingdom, Jews are dangerous people. Beware of them. They lead people to think independently. Their whole culture is about independent thinking. The Jewish people never had church conferences like the famous conferences that defined Christianity in the 3rd, 4th centuries down into the Middle Ages. This you may believe, this you may not believe. We had halacha, we had uniformity in practice, but not in belief. That's why Judaism could house both medieval philosophy and Kabbalah, which were completely opposed to one another, and people who wanted neither, Hasidim and Misnagdim, because we're a culture that's open to different kinds of thought. And so Paro sees this and says, Am Yisrael Rav V'atzu Mimenu. They're too much themselves and they think too freely, they quarrel too much. They are dangerous people. I'd better enslave them to shut them up. We've got to be careful of that kind of enemy. They teach their children to think freely. Watch out for them. Moses, when God speaks to him, calls him at the burning bush, says, what am I going to tell these Jews? They're not going to just believe that God spoke to me out of a burning bush. They think freely. When they say, what's his name, this fellow who talked to you, this God who talked to you? What are you going to say? What should I say to them? And God gives them a bizarre answer. This is what you should tell the Bnei Israel, that Eheyeh sent you. Eheyeh, I am the voice of the future. I am the future tense. I am that which can still be. I am that which will be when you liberate yourselves from Egypt, when I liberate you from Egypt. There is still a future. There is still hope. But coming out of Egypt may be harder than going into Egypt. Beginning of Sefer Shemot, Eile Shemot B'nai Yisrael Haba'im Mitzrayim, who are coming into Egypt. We're always coming in. But at the beginning of Sefer B'midbar, Bashana Hashenit L'tzetam Mimitzrayim. They're at 2 years and they're still coming out. 2 years of coming out of Egypt, 40 years of coming out of Egypt. Remember how long it takes to come out of Egypt. That's a big job. Meanwhile, this week, let's go in and see what we can do about it and see if we can set ourselves up for coming out. Shabbat Shalom. See you next week.